Nia Rochelle Hayes, a 42-year-old ER nurse and single mother, died in a violent car crash during a storm. But what she saw in the 12 minutes she was gone would change her forever. In a realm beyond life, Jesus revealed the unseen spiritual chains behind racism. Chains wrapped around both black and white souls. What he showed her about fear, silence, and unity wasn't political, it was eternal. This isn't just a near-death story. It's a call to heal.
My name is Nia Rochelle Hayes. I'm 42 years old, a single mother of two, and I work as an ER nurse in Atlanta, Georgia. I've been in healthcare for nearly 2 decades. Some days it feels like I've seen everything: blood loss, miracles, breakdowns. I love helping people, but lately I've felt drained in ways even rest can't fix. I get up, get my kids ready, head into chaos, come home sore and silent, and do it all over again. Most days my strength is survival. I believe in God. I always have. My mama raised me in church, and I still pray before every shift. But faith doesn't feel simple anymore. I know God is real, but sometimes I wonder if he sees how tired I am. I wonder if he sees what the world still refuses to face. What wears me down most isn't just the work. It's the silence. The way race shows up in the room but no one calls it by name. The white coworkers who ask if I'm okay during another national headline, then quickly change the subject. Or worse, the ones who say nothing at all. There's one nurse I've worked with for years. Her name's Beth. She means well, I believe that. She brings cupcakes to the break room and posts about kindness on social media. But one day, after a difficult conversation about a police shooting, she said to me, "I just don't see color." And something in me snapped. Not loudly, not outwardly. I just nodded. But inside I shut down. How do you explain to someone that not seeing color doesn't make the pain go away? I carry my emotions like armor, close to the chest, tight in the jaw. I don't cry much. I can't afford to. Not with kids to raise and patients to save. But under it all I've been angry. Not explosive, not loud, just a quiet, long, deep ache. Like something is broken, and no one wants to name it. I've always told myself, just keep going. Just hold it together. I had no idea how close I was to falling apart. It was a Thursday night, just after 10 p.m. I had picked up a double shift because another nurse called out. I was driving home. The roads slick from an unexpected storm. Rain hit the windshield hard, and my wipers struggled to keep up. I remember gripping the steering wheel, eyes heavy, just wanting my bed. I was only 5 minutes from home when it happened. Out of nowhere, a truck in the opposite lane lost control. It skidded, spun, and crossed the divider. I didn't even have time to scream. The headlights filled my windshield, then silence. Not glass, not metal, not pain. Just silence. Deep and thick, like the world had been turned off. The next thing I knew, I was above it. Hovering. Watching. My car was mangled. Crumpled like a toy under pressure. First responders were already arriving. Lights flashing blue and red through the storm. Someone was pulling open the driver's side door. I recognized my own body, slumped and still. Blood at the corner of my mouth. Eyes closed. Face pale. I should have panicked. I should have screamed. But I didn't. I couldn't. I just watched. And somehow I knew. I was dead. There was no time. No wait. No body. Just awareness, like I'd stepped out of everything I thought I was and into something I couldn't name. I wasn't afraid yet. But I wasn't at peace either. Felt like something had just begun. It happened so fast I didn't even have time to scream. One moment I was driving through heavy rain on my way home from a double shift. The next a car from the opposite lane skidded, hit the divider and came straight into my lane. Metal tore. Glass exploded. Then nothing. No sound. No pain. Nowhere. Just stillness. Then I was above it all. Floating, or maybe just watching. My body was in the wreckage, crushed in a way I couldn't look at for long. People were yelling, someone was calling for help. But none of that felt real. The rain still poured, but it didn't touch me. I knew. I was dead. But I wasn't afraid. I felt released. Like something heavy I hadn't even noticed carrying was suddenly gone. The fear, the pressure, the weight of being strong for everyone, it all vanished. Then I felt a pull. Not upward, not downward, but inward. Like I was being drawn into something deeper. like I had stepped through a crack in the world into the truth behind it. Light met me there, but not light like we know it. This light had presence, intelligence. It wasn't blinding, it was welcoming. It shimmered with warmth and purpose, like it had been waiting just for me. And then I saw him. Jesus. He didn't look like any painting I'd ever seen. At first, he appeared as a black man, skin like my grandfather's, rich and deep, eyes full of sorrow and joy at once. Then gently his form shifted. He became lighter, then darker, then something in between. I asked softly, "Why do you keep changing?" He smiled. Not with his mouth but with his being. "Every soul sees me in the language of their spirit," he said. "I become familiar so you won't be afraid." Jesus reached out his hand, not demanding, just open, and said, "Come with me." We didn't walk. We moved like thought. The space around us shifted, softened, became something I can only describe as heart space. Not a place for eyes but for the soul. "There," he said, "I want you to feel, not just see." Then it began. First, I was inside the heart of a white woman. Her face was familiar, like someone I might pass in the grocery store. I felt her hesitation, her fear. Not hatred, but fear of saying the wrong thing, of being labeled, of not knowing enough. She wanted to care, but she was frozen. Every word felt like a risk. Every silence felt like failure. Her fear didn't excuse silence, but it explained it. And I felt it, not as an excuse but as a real ache. Then, without warning, I was in the soul of a black mother. She was tired. Not sleepy, tired in her bones. She held her child tight every night, praying, whispering strength into them. I felt her dread when they walked out the door. I felt the weight she carried just to move through the world. Her faith was still strong, but her body was worn down. Her spirit bruised but not broken. Next, I stepped into the confusion of a white pastor. His heart was sincere. He had preached love for years but now felt lost. He wanted to speak truth but worried about losing people, saying too much, not saying enough. He hated injustice, but didn't know how to guide a church split by unspoken tension. He carried guilt, confusion, and pressure he didn't know how to name. Then I was a child. I sat at the top of a staircase, legs pulled in, listening to my parents argue downstairs. They weren't yelling in hate, they were just hurting in different ways. One wanted to protect, the other wanted to understand. Their love was real, but it was tangled in fear, pride, and history. I felt all of it. I wept, not just with tears but in my soul. It was too much. Too heavy. Jesus stood beside me, steady and sure. "This," he said, "is not political. This is spiritual." And in that moment I understood. The space shifted again. The pain I had just felt was still inside me, but Jesus said, "There's more I need to show you." Then I saw it, a chain. It wasn't made of metal or anything physical, but it pulsed with energy. It stretched through time, through people, through generations. It was wrapped around everyone. Black, white, young, old. Some carried it openly. Others didn't even know it was there. Each link held a phrase. "It's not my fault. I'm tired of explaining. They won't understand. I just stay quiet. You people are always angry. I don't see color. It's too complicated. I don't talk about that stuff." The chain twisted around hearts, around churches, around conversations that never started. It tightened every time someone chose silence instead of courage. Every time someone pulled back instead of leaning in. Every time fear won over love. I looked at Jesus, stunned. "What is this?" I asked. He touched the chain gently, like it broke his heart to even name it. "This is not just racism," he said. "It is a spiritual contract passed from soul to soul, sealed by fear, sustained by silence." And suddenly, I saw how the enemy had used this chain, not with fire or violence, but with apathy, with guilt, with pride, with the lies we tell ourselves to avoid pain. I realized this chain didn't just divide us. It owned us. Until someone chose to break it. Jesus turned, and what came next was the hardest for me to witness. He showed me the church. Not one building but many, hundreds, maybe thousands. I saw black churches full of strength and history. White churches with polished pews and perfect choirs. Multi-ethnic churches with flags on the wall, and diversity on the website. Some of them glowed. I could feel the presence of heaven moving through the people like breath. These churches were alive, not because they were loud or flashy, but because they were honest, humble, and hungry for God. But others felt cold. Not dead but grieving. They sang about love, but I could feel the gap between the rows. I could hear the silence that followed when race was mentioned. I could see the invisible walls built from fear and pride. Some preached unity but only within comfort zones. Others avoided the topic altogether.
Jesus sotto besi de mim.
His eyes didn't blaze with wrath. They filled with sorrow. They preach unity, he said softly, but they won't hold hands. They use my name, he continued, but not my nature. And I felt it. His grief wasn't just about what was missing. It was about what could have been. The power the church could carry. The healing it could bring. But it had settled. Settled for safety. Settled for silence. And the Spirit of God was not absent, but he was grieved. Jesus looked at me and said, "Let me show you what the world doesn't see." The scene shifted. I didn't see pulpits or stages. I saw quiet places. Simple people. Small moments that carried weight in heaven. I saw a white woman in her 70s kneeling beside her bed.
No camera.
No crowd. She prayed every night for racial healing in her church, in her family, in herself. She had never posted a thing about it. But she had fasted in secret. Wept in secret. Loved in secret. "This is one of my saints," Jesus said. Next, I saw a black teenage boy sitting across from his white history teacher. The teacher had said something racist months before. The boy could have stayed bitter. No one would have blamed him. But instead he wrote him a letter. Not to shame but to forgive. His voice trembled as he handed it over. But the forgiveness was real. And heaven saw it. Then I saw a little girl. Biracial. No more than 10. She sat at her desk writing letters, one to her mother's side of the family, the other to her father's. In both she asked one thing. "Can we please stop fighting and eat dinner together this year?" She folded the notes and prayed over them with hands too small to carry the weight she felt. "These," Jesus said, "are my saints. They are not loud," he whispered, "but they are building bridges." And in heaven, they were celebrated like kings. Then the light shifted one more time. And Jesus brought me to a place I'll never forget. It wasn't a church. It wasn't a temple. But it felt sacred. It was a sanctuary, floating alive, breathing. Not made of stone or wood, but of something deeper. I saw it rising from the ground. Built from moments no one clapped for. No one recorded, but heaven remembered. Its walls shimmered with stories, brave, quiet stories. A white man sitting down to listen instead of defend. A black woman letting go of bitterness not because she was weak, but because she was strong. Two families choosing to pray together after years of silence. Every act of reconciliation, every confession, every meal shared across division, every prayer whispered in humility, had become part of this place. Jesus stood beside me watching it rise. "This is the sanctuary of reconciliation," he said. "It is not built by those who are perfect," he continued, "but by those who are brave." He pointed to the glowing structure, and I could see bricks forming in real time. A conversation between two co-workers. Public apology. A quiet moment of forgiveness at a kitchen table. "Every I'm sorry is a brick," he said. "Every I forgive you is mortar." I stood there in awe. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. Not because it was grand, but because it was true. And I knew somehow this sanctuary was eternal. Jesus turned to me and suddenly the space around us fell quiet, deep, holy quiet. I felt like the whole universe had paused to listen. He looked at me with eyes that saw everything. My weariness. My anger. My honesty. My heart. And he didn't flinch. "You've carried pain that wasn't yours to carry alone," he said. "You've spoken truth with fire but also with fear. You've shut people out to survive. But now it's time to open." I couldn't speak. I just stood there trembling under the weight of being fully seen and fully loved. Then he said, "You are not the whole answer, but you are a key." And I knew what he meant. I wasn't called to fix everything, but I was called to be part of something bigger. "Go," he said. Not with rage but with vision. Not to tear down but to call higher. Speak. Lead. Love. Forgive. He placed his hand over my heart, firm, warm, eternal. Go and be part of the healing. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. I wasn't just coming back. I was being sent. I came back with a gasp. The pain was instant. My ribs ached, my chest burned, my head throbbed. I was in the hospital. Lights overhead. Machines beeping. Voices calling my name. I was back in my body, but I wasn't who I was before. I remembered everything. Every word Jesus spoke. Every soul I felt. Every chain I saw. Every tear he shed. And I knew I couldn't keep it to myself. Since then, I've shared my story with anyone who will listen. In churches, in living rooms, across dinner tables. Not to guilt anyone. Not to preach. But to wake people up. To stir courage. To open hearts. Because now I know something I didn't before. Racism isn't just a problem of the past or a political issue. It's not just about laws or language or skin. Racism is a spiritual wound. And love is the only cure. So to anyone reading this, I want to say this. If you're afraid to speak, speak anyway. If you've stayed quiet too long, it's not too late. If you've shut people out, open your heart. If you feel too ashamed to try, try anyway. Jesus is bigger than fear. Bigger than guilt. Bigger than history. Love is the bridge. Start building. Heaven is watching. And every step toward unity echoes in eternity.